So some of our most important settings are actually on the right-hand side here. When we click on our flow object, you can see we have our sampling substeps, which is basically the accuracy or the detail level. We have flow source, which is going to be mesh, which just means that it's emulated or simulated from the mesh going up. And then we, of course, have something called initial velocity. Initial velocity is really cool. If I go ahead and check that, I can make our initial X velocity maybe 5. And what should happen is when we play this back, our smoke should flow back towards the x-axis. Let's see what happens. And as you can see, it does. Now, 5 is a pretty low value, but you can see the smoke traveling that way. Now, right now, I'm in a mode called replay. As you know, with our domain, if we go all the way down to our cache, we usually select all and then we bake. I'll leave it on replay so we can see quickly our changes, but I normally like to bake on the setting that is called all, because that's typically where you get to bake to a folder. As you can see, when I press play, our smoke is emulated, and again, similar to before, it cannot leave the domain. Notice how it gets tucked away in the corner over here? It cannot leave the domain. So this domain, all of these walls, are where the smoke will actually interact with. Now I want to show you a really cool example. I'm going to delete this cube. I'm going to go back to frame 1. I'm going to go ahead and add in a torus object, add mesh torus. All right, and I'm going to make this our fluid flow, okay? I'm going to change the type to smoke. Now let's see what this looks like. Whoa, we get sort of this really cool smoke ring. You can see if we look from different angles how that actually appears to look. Very cool. Let's see what happens when it hits the top. Almost reaches the top. We're going about to frame 100 here. But look how interesting that looks. Depending on the object that's emulating the smoke, we can get a completely different effect. Now, if we go to our domain here, we of course have the resolution, which is the quality of our smoke simulation, but there's a lot of other things that we can adjust here too. For example, the heat, we can turn that down to 0. Now let's see what kind of result we get. Interesting. We get a much more smooth result. You can see that the smoke isn't rising nearly as fast either, and if we go towards the end, it hasn't even reached the top yet. In the last simulation, when the heat was set to 1, it did reach the top. There's also buoyancy and vorticity. Now, vorticity is basically how swirly the smoke is. So let's try to set this to 1. Let's go back. Let's see what that looks like. Now, look how crazy this thing looks now. That's maybe a little bit too high. Let's try something like 0.4. Now I'm going to go back to frame 1. Now remember, typically we would be baking this out. This looks pretty good. You can see the vorticity really affects the way that the smoke travels. Lower value might be better. Let's try 0.1 and that'll be the last thing we try here. You can see the smoke rising, but it still has some shakiness to it, and that's because we raised that vorticity level. You can see it start to break apart up here. That's because we raised that vorticity level. Now, there's a lot of different things that we can do with smoke simulations, but I do want to go ahead and switch this to all. All right, and I want to go ahead and raise the resolution up to 150. I'm going to bake this, okay? I'm going to scroll down to our cache. I'm going to bake this out to frame 100, and then we're going to come back when it's done. I'm going to click bake. You're going to see down here there's a little percentage. We're going to come back as soon as that's done, and I want to show you the result with a higher resolution. All right, our bake is finally complete. Let's go ahead and take a look. Let's go ahead and play this back. Now it's going quite slow at about 8 frames a second, so I'm going to skip ahead here. Now look at the detail level. Now remember, we did turn the vorticity up, but look at that detail level in the smoke. We are at 150 for our resolution. This looks really, really good. You can see that as we turn up that resolution, we can get some really realistic results. And the higher quality mesh that we're emulating the smoke from will also result in a higher quality simulation. And if I hide that mesh, you can see where the smoke is emulating from, okay? You can see right here, I hid the torus, and when I go ahead and play this back, you can notice how nice the smoke actually looks. Hopefully you guys can see that true level of detail there.